All right, welcome everybody. My name is John. I'm from NextOp. I want to thank you very much for calling in today for a panel. I'll just do a quick introduction here about us here at NextOp, and I'll just introduce you to some people here that joined in today. So again, my name is John. NextOp Veterans. We're a nonprofit organization. We're kind of geared towards, again, helping veterans with their transition or employment search. We provide resume writing help, networking, connections. Again, bridging that gap between the employer and the veteran, and is trying to help them with that transition for the next opportunity. Today I have Gal Jones. He's a Marine Corps retired. He works at Brown and Root Training Development. We have Craig here, again, Marine retired. He's a training facilitator with Texas Workforce Solutions. I'm also with Dina, Tiffany, Patrick, Chris. I have Steph on the line. We're all at NextOp. Again, we're all veterans ourselves. We're all here to help the veteran community any way we can. We also have Armando. He's an HR VP with Perry Homes. We're also going to have Daniela's going to call in here, and she's a recruiter with Perry Homes. So they're going to all add their valuable tips and advice for us and for the veterans out there that are transitioning or looking for the next opportunity. So again, just kind of go over the purpose of this. I wanted to do this because, again, I just recently transitioned myself, and I attended a lot of classes, whether it be the TRS, whether it be a lot of workshops that are out there that are offered. But again, they were all PowerPoint slide driven. They were all, line by line, check in the box classes. And it really got not dry, but it really missed the mark for me as far as getting that connection, really talking one-on-one, or just kind of getting the real down and dirty of the real struggles of transitioning. And also, if you can't put your video on mute before you're talking, well, I'll talk about that as well, but please mute it. We'll go over that. But again, I wanted to get away with slideshows and be a little more informal, kind of have a network going on, and just to help people out, have this once a month meeting, just to put ourselves out there. And again, our goal is to, what I wanted to, what made me feel better was knowing that people were out there struggling, maybe the fear, or maybe just looking for that job, and they felt like they were the only ones that were in that predicament. But it wasn't until I met more people that were in the same boat as me, that were struggling, maybe had the fears of doing interviews, or maybe talking to people, networking. They all had that same type of issues going on, and that made me feel better talking to them, knowing that I had other people on my side or other people in that same boat. So that's really the purpose of this. So last month, it was a good one. That was our first panel, and we talked about the overall transition woes and just the do's and don'ts. We went over interview preparation. We went over a very small topic of LinkedIn and just what we did as our transition. I think it went really well. Had some good information. We got some good feedback. So again, I look forward to doing this once a month, doing about different topics. And today we'll talk a little more in depth on networking, and we'll also talk about social media and how to leverage that with your job search. So I just want to introduce here before we begin. Well, not introduce, sorry. Have a story to tell. So a story, again, it's kind of boring, but I think it's irrelevant to this situation, and hopefully it'll kind of shed light, kind of help someone out there. Because again, this talks about networking and the mistake I made. So kind of go back about a few months before I went on my retirement leave. I was stationed here at Ellington Field, and I came into work one day, and my ID card got messed up. I couldn't log in, so I had to go to the ID center there at Ellington Field. So if you don't know Ellington Field, the ID center is awesome, but it's like a DPS, DMV type thing where you can stand in line for hours. You can be there all day waiting. So it's not a great place to go, especially being a grumpy gunny 2 months out before you were supposed to go on retirement leave. That's not a really place you want to go to hang out there. So anyways, I had to go there, pissed off, wait in line early in the morning. And when I was waiting in line, there was an older gentleman in front of me. You know, he looked like a retired, retired military himself. And again, I was grumpy. I don't want to talk to anybody. And he looked at me. He smiled, and I didn't want anything to do with him. I had my arms crossed. Didn't make eye contact. I was pissed off. You know, giving that aura of leave me alone. But he continued to look at me. You could tell he wanted to conversate with me, and just kind of, again, he's seen a guy in a uniform, and I'm assuming, again, he was a veteran. He just wanted to talk about his times and how it was back in the day. But again, I just didn't want anything to do with it. So finally, after waiting in line, I finally made eye contact. I gave him a smile, and boom, right away that opened up the doors of him talking to me, and him making a conversation about he was a Navy retired, and just kind of talk about his stories. And I was just like, whatever, here we go. Here's the old stories there. So the next thing he talked about was, he asked me, hey, Gunny, when are you gonna retire? So that kind of piqued my interest, and I kind of smiled because I was like, it's funny you mentioned it. I'm about 2 months before my retirement leave. So he was like, oh wow, he was excited for me, and he was just talking to me about that. And he had mentioned, well, I'm a manager at MD Anderson. If you need anything, let me know. So I kind of took it back. I was like, wow, I kind of shunned this person, so to speak, and I had no personality. I didn't want anything to do with this person. And a long story short, I missed the boat. I missed this opportunity to connect with somebody that maybe could have helped me out in the long run. Just because I was, again, not approachable, I wasn't personable, I didn't have the charisma in me of, looking him in the eye, talking to him, smiling. So again, long story short, my opportunity 2 months before I go on my leave, I'm in the middle of my huge job hunt, and I couldn't so much give this person the time of day and talk to him and build that rapport, because I didn't realize that this person was a high up manager at MD Anderson. In the position I applied for too with MD Anderson, he could have helped me out a lot. So we did talk a little bit. We did exchange emails. I gave my resume for advice and tips and everything. We kind of went back and forth. But that's it. I didn't leave. I didn't ask him help. I didn't ask him for anything else. Probably my initial attitude or my initial comments, or maybe the way I approached him, maybe turned him off a little bit. My first impression. But again, just my advice again, that's a long story, but it's straight and to the point. No matter if you're looking for a job now or whether you might be looking for in a year from now, because you have no idea what's going to happen in the future. If you run into somebody in the line at a store and that person makes eye contact, waves to you, says hi, wants to talk to you, again, that could be an opportunity for you. You don't know. That can open up doors for you. So again, that's just my real quick opening long story of the wrong thing to do to shun people away, especially in the height of your transition or your search. So for me, networking is I'm bad on that because I'm not really personable at first. You got to get to know me before I kind of open up. And again, so the hard thing for me is to open up, be that charismatic person, and just to open up doors and talk to people. So we'll kind of talk about that today, and let's kind of get you guys' opinions and advice. So we'll leave that topic. The first question I have today is about networking, obviously, and what did you prepare during your transition as far as networking, non-social media, nothing like that. Like, what did you do? What is your advice? Craig, we'll start with you. What did you do in your transition?
Um, so, I really love your story because it really does speak to me on a lot of ways that when I was in active duty, or a lot of my friends were in active duty, we kind of, you kind of roll your eyes and go, oh God, here comes that guy that's out of the military, or, oh, it's just true. It's just true. And then once you're out of the military, I can say that sometimes you kind of go back and forth between that love and hate relationship between, the things you really appreciate from being in the military, and then the things you're like, I just don't want to deal with that again, or I hate those bad memories. But to answer your question, I mean, outside of social media, in the beginning, it was a lot about, should I go to this job fair? This is all pre-COVID, of course. But let me try going to this job fair. And you walk in there, and again, do I want to be social? Do I want to be personable? or do I just walk around and just collect little flyers and go, what am I doing here? What's going on? And in the beginning, that was an obstacle. That was an obstacle for me because who am I supposed to be networking with? Where do I find people to talk to? Because my circle in the beginning, while you're still in the military, is the people you work with. And so I had a few friends that had just gotten out, and but the reality is a lot of times when you first get out, you're not really reaching out to people very, very much. It's just, and then for me coming out of the military, I expected a lot of like, hey, welcome home. Hey, glad that you're back in the area again. Let's hang out. And so my mental connection was, hey, networking is going to happen naturally. Oh, I'm just going to fall back into all the things that are going to happen. And that was a pitfall. That's something I had to look back on and realize that networking has to be proactive. Networking should be proactive. And it wasn't until almost a year and a half later, when I started looking into other volunteer events. I went to a lot of volunteer events, not just because I liked to volunteer, not necessarily, but I started doing volunteer events that I was interested in, like like I volunteered at different runs, maybe because I didn't feel like running, but I wouldn't mind supporting them. And then I'd meet other veterans there. And so then it was finding things that I was interested in that would pull me out of the house or pull me out of doing different things. And little by little, that helped me network a little bit better because at least I wasn't feeling like I needed to force myself in front of a virtual or a job fair booth and just strike up a conversation or strike up a conversation with somebody in an elevator or in a line. Because I mean, just like you're saying, it can be kind of awkward. And if you're not an outwardly social person, you kind of go, do I want to really strike up a conversation with that? The Marine Corps, you say red hatters. Red hatters are guys that have like the retired hat. Nowadays, we see people with like patches on their hat or, that wear the, tactical gear and civilian clothes. And you're like, oh, do I really want to talk to that person? But in reality, it took me finding my own interest to break out of that shell a little bit and go on some of those runs or volunteer at a marathon and meet up with some of the local groups that helped open up my network a little bit and kind of show me that there's different ways to open up the bubble of who you work with.
Okay, so you're saying obviously you're not forcing yourself. You're putting yourself in the predicaments of putting yourself in groups, volunteering, and that's opening up the doors to networking, and you're making natural connections.
And that was the start of it. I think the natural connections happened, without me meaning to do it. And then it also, once I started meeting different people, I kind of understood where I could find a mentor or I could find a coach or I could find a sponsor, all those different levels. And when someone actually introduced me to certain groups, those kind of opened up, and I found organizations like 4Block or Team RWB or Combined Arms or eventually you all, because I found you through LinkedIn. So I don't want to get ahead of that, but it's because I went to those groups that I was interested in that I started running into things that would lead into actual networking. Not that organically doing things isn't networking, but sometimes, it's a intentfully doing things that really made the difference.
Okay, that's good. So Armando, kind of go off and continue with this with you on your side, as far as being on the HR side. Um, what's something I can do as far as a potential candidate of job search? How can I break the ice? What key words can I say to people shaking hands and introducing myself to recruiters or HR managers?
You know, I think really it starts before that. Just to kind of piggyback on what was said previous is, when I started looking for work, I was too proud to kind of ask family and friends. I didn't want any help. I wanted to do it on my own. I wanted to earn my stripes, as far as getting my own job. That was a big mistake. You really have to network. Start with your family, your friends. Ask them who they know, what companies they have some kind of connection to and with, because what that does is that then, if we get a resume from someone and it's like, hey, my name is, I'm a veteran and I know Jane who works there. automatically that's going to get them to the top of my stack. It's not going to get them the job. It's not going to get them any special treatment, but it's going to get them to the top of the stack for consideration. It's going to get their resume to stand out, because for some positions, especially in a market like we are now, we'll get 100 resumes, and we may not have time to review every single one if in the first 20 we found a couple candidates. So I really can't hit that enough, is reaching out to family and friends. You should kind of be pretty comfortable with them talking, and it doesn't need to be like a close connection. If they're like, hey, I know this person, don't hesitate to reach out. And then what I would recommend is, at Perry Homes, we're a pretty conservative company. So I would, with all of those interactions, just kind of remain professional the whole time, remain personable, remain friendly, because you don't know if it's a conservative organization, that they're wearing shirts and ties. You don't know if they may be put off by cursing, that sort of thing. So kind of always act that, when networking, that you're kind of like on a mini interview per se. But as far as then when you get to that point, as far as when you're talking to a hiring manager, to kind of go back to your question, where you're talking to HR, I definitely always encourage you, so once you've done the initial networking, once you've reached out and it's like, okay, I got these 3 companies that I have some kind of connections with, do a little bit of research on the front end, look them up online, try to get a feel for what positions they have open, get a feel for what your experience in the military would be a good fit for. Because once they get to us, we want someone that's prepared, knows about our company, and has a true interest in the company, and knows why they're a good fit for the jobs that we have open. And not more someone that is just kind of looking for a job. That kind of is a turnoff to a lot of employers. So don't be shy. Try to network. They're just trying to help you. That's not cheating. You definitely want to get out there and network as much as possible with all your personal contacts, because they'll get you to the top of the stack, would be my initial advice.
Okay, that's good. Appreciate it. So yeah,
Can I add to that a little bit too?
What's that?
Can I add to that a little bit too? Because that's such a great point. There's so many good things in there. Sometimes it's not about just landing a job. I think, like you're saying, it's just about networking. It's about getting out there and knowing that you have to make a connection, because like all of us are saying, sometimes you don't know what that connection really breaks down to. And knowing that, making that impression, or making that good impression, and just establishing a connection could lead to something bigger later. But you don't have to make a networking connection just because that person is going to give you a job right then. Sometimes it's just about slowly building that connection and building your network little by little, but doing it intentfully, just like y'all are saying. But definitely, it's great points.
Yes. So yeah, to the point, I was going to say, I went through a resume class again during my transition, and the instructor had mentioned how, again, this is my point of view. I agree with them, but again, as men, I guess, we're prideful, and a lot of men won't really say they're looking for a job. They'll keep it to themselves. They're too prideful of talking to people and saying, hey, I got laid off, or I'm in between jobs. So they're going to hold back on that topic, I guess, which again, they're going to miss out on those valuable connections. So yeah, that's good feedback, Armando. So before we move on to the next thing, I have one more person I want to talk to. It's Ga, about networking, his transition. So Ga Jones, we were stationed together here at Ellington Field, and he retired first, but over a year ago. And again, he's a quiet professional, and I kind of sit back while looking at him transitioning. And I just kind of we never really talked about his transition really personally as far as what he did. So I kind of want to take a moment and just, God, what did you do as you starting off, and how did you build your network? Any advice?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? All right. I'm Gar Jones, currently with Brown and Root Industrial Services, work out of Deer Park. I'm a training coordinator for Brown and Root, and just my quick transition, everything it went through, I've always been networking, heading out there doing military events, always network, try to talk to people, and not looking for job, but really just talking to people, seeing what they do, and if that would pique my interest. I got offered a job maybe a year out that was guaranteed to do military contracting work, getting out there and training, but I wanted no part of that. I wanted to detox, get away from the infantry stuff when I retired, and just stay away from military things. And during TRS, the guy who built a resume down at Corpus Christi had my email looking for jobs, transition out. December I was going to retire in April. I think around November, December I went down and get it done. And he got my email address, and he always forwarded me jobs, opportunities, and stuff. And I didn't care, heading out there, like someone once mentioned, just getting out there, volunteering, see what people have. Get out there and see it. Maybe it might be something you may not like, or maybe pique your interest. And going to NextOp was putting something together. And John, I received an email from your predecessor about a workshop of veterans that were coming up in the construction field. What did I have to lose? I went to that workshop. It was for 3 or 4 days, did the workshop. And after that, at the end of the 4th day, they had a mass job interview, almost like what people call speed dating. You have 5 minutes to talk to each recruiter. And you went around the table from one room to another talking to recruiters and spoke to everyone. I was the eldest in the group. The youngest veteran made fun of me, like, oh man, what are you going to do in the construction industry with your bad back and everything else? And he just sat there, I was like, hey, I'll probably do anything, maybe, I'll beat yourself. But it was a great opportunity to network with all those veterans and the instructors. Did the interview. At the end of the day, I could say I was the last to get hired. About almost 2 or 3 months after the interview, I got a call from Brown and Root for a job interview. I had done a previous interview before that didn't work out, and got a call from Brown and Root. Show up on July 3rd. Did an interview. On July 5th, I got a call from the HR personnel. She told me, if you want a job, you got it. So I didn't get it the time I wanted to, and I could have gotten another job, but this job just fit me perfectly with what I do and stuff with training. And got the job July 5th and started working with Brown and Root July 15th. Everyone else that I did the interview with, I went back and sat on construction committees with those people representing my company. And some of them wish they had hired me, and they still tell me, if I'm looking for a job right now, if I leave my company, I'll have a job working with them. But it was just that networking part. And even working with Brown and Root, I continue to do the networking, because that's what we do in this business. That's how we get contract, and that's how we hire more people with networking. Just the short of my story, transitioning from, TRS to the event NextOp had, attending that event and getting the job offer 3 months later, and doing what I do and loving it, traveling the country, teaching and getting people certified in a craft training.
Awesome. So if it wasn't for you opening up and actually attending something that you really didn't think that was going to lead to something, but you took the time out, attended it, and that actually led to something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Take the time out, get out there, talk to people, and network.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So
Hey, John, you're on mute.
all right, apologize. We're gonna switch gears to social media. All right, so obviously it's big right now, and I just want to start talking about the advice that you can give to give people out there on how to start and build your social media platform. For me, real quick, I talked about it last time, but I started my LinkedIn. That's my only social media platform I have. I started my account maybe about 6 months before I retired. In my opinion, that was way too late. Because obviously, it takes time to build your network. It takes time to even navigate and how to learn how to utilize it. So again, you're still transitioning, you're still doing your job in the military. So I didn't really focus too much on LinkedIn. So I would kind of regret not utilizing it more, building it. That way, when times comes, when it's time for me to apply for jobs and actually put myself out there, I was kind of still behind the power curve. So if we can, let's talk about, advice. I'll start with Dina. She's big in social media and LinkedIn. So I kind of want to start with her and get some advice. If you can give some advice to someone that's just starting off their transition or employment search, what would you do?
Yeah, definitely. So like John mentioned, I'm huge on LinkedIn. I think it's a great platform for you to use if you are seeking to build your network, if you are looking for employment opportunities. I think the biggest piece of advice is make sure that your LinkedIn is complete. And, nobody's going to know what the perfect LinkedIn looks like. But when I say complete, make sure you have a professional photo. Make sure that that photo is not in uniform, because you are no longer that airman, that soldier, that Marine. You are, you know, transitioning into the civilian sector. So you want to look professional in civilian attire. Make sure you have a good tagline. Make sure your name is spelled correctly. Capitalization. I mean, we see it all. So it seems like these points might be minor, but we just want to make sure that you are presenting the best professional image of yourself. You know, I talk to a lot of candidates, and I'm on the phone with them, and that's one of my first questions. Hey, do you have a professional presence on LinkedIn? And they say, well, I have a LinkedIn, but that's it. You know, you can't just have a LinkedIn. You want to make sure that you're showcasing your experience, your education, any other certifications you may have, because I've talked to so many HR people across my time, you know, seeking employment and working with NextOp, and they are going to look at your LinkedIn. They want to know that, you know, your experience on your resume aligns with what's on your LinkedIn. They want to, you know, see what types of things you're doing, you know, how much content you have on there. So first and foremost, you know, if you need help with LinkedIn, there are so many people out there that I'm not going to say experts, but will definitely give you good advice to make sure that your LinkedIn is set up professionally. And secondly, you know, when you are trying to make those connections on LinkedIn, like everybody mentioned, you know, do it with intent, do it with purpose. You can have, you know, 500 followers, but if you're not actually building relationships, it really doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. So when you reach out to somebody, you know, reach out to somebody to try to connect with them, and maybe give them your elevator pitch. Maybe it's somebody like Gaw or like Armando, who are, you know, with companies that you're interested in. So if you want to reach out to them, you know, address them professionally, send a note with your connection, you know, state a little bit about yourself so they know the purpose of why you're trying to connect with them. You know, again, I would stay away from anything that isn't on a professional basis. And I could go on and on about LinkedIn, so I won't talk too much, but, you know, just be mindful of what you're posting on there as well, because that's the thing, you know, it's open information. If it's out there, it is going to be seen. There are things that you post that you can't take back. So just make sure that you keep it professional. And again, build those relationships with intent and purpose.
Okay, awesome. So this real quick, my thoughts on the profile and everything. So your headline, because some people, like, you know, again, we're coming from the military, going to the civilian side. We kind of get caught up on the headline of what to put down. So somebody told me about the headline of what to put. So keep this in mind. For your headline, it's something that you want to do, your job title, right? It's not what you do now necessarily. And then don't put your military job, because there's no such thing as senior enlisted advisor or senior leader. There's no military jargon jobs that's going to translate to the civilian side. They have no idea what that is. So do some research, know exactly what job title you want to go into. Bottom line is, you do not want to leave anybody guessing on what you want to do after your next job. So keep that civilian friendly, go away from the military jargon, get that good professional headshot. So going back to being personable. Again, I mean mug, I'm not really happy looking. But again, you have to break that smile and just be happy, because that's your first impression. If you're looking miserable, am I going to want to hire you or want to talk to you? Maybe not. So don't forget to smile, have a good headshot. I kind of want to pick Armando's brain on this as well. Just talk about LinkedIn and just the preparation of LinkedIn and how to stand out, and what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate it. I mean, I think y'all hit a lot of the really good highlights. You know, obviously professional is a big deal. You know, it's a you know, working website. It's not like a social site. So keep that in mind. I can't tell you how many pictures I've seen where it just makes you think, man, I can't believe they posted that. It's like them and their buddy, or it's just got like them and an arm around their neck or something. I thought you brought up a good point, you know, with the military jargon. You know, you're going to have civilian people looking at it. So try to translate your experience into layman's terms. And, you know, for someone like myself, even though I've interviewed quite a few of military veterans in the past, but the employer can know, oh, okay, well, that's good leadership skills. That's management, or, you know, that could be interpreted as marketing, or so it's really good to help translate that. You can join groups that are appropriate with the different jobs that you're looking for. That's always good to kind of continue to build your network. And if you are reaching out to an employer, again, to kind of touch on what y'all said, do a little bit of research on the front end. If someone just reaches out to me looking for information, I'll be honest, it's not going to really get too much back from me. But if you're like, hey, I went on the Perry Home site, I saw that you have this construction manager job. I've really looked into it. I've talked to some people. I think it'd be a good fit for my military background. What can I do? Can I pick your brain? Something like that. That's going to really intrigue me. And then lastly, one thing that I would recommend, we're talking about social media. I know we're talking about LinkedIn. Keep in mind, some employers are going to check other social media outlets that you have as part of their background check. So that's something that we do. So even though LinkedIn needs to be really uber professional, you want to also keep in mind, what you have on Facebook, Instagram, and the other social sites to make sure that it's appropriate if someone looks you up. So I recommend either, making sure that it's all appropriate, that you would be okay if your future employer was looking at those pages, or keep it private, because some employers will look at that information as well.
Yeah, Amanda, just a caveat of that. After my job interview, when I got hired and went to Baton Rouge, they told me to check my Facebook page to see what I was like on Facebook, what I was posting, if there was anything derogatory or not, because your employers will look at those things. So be careful what you post. Like Diana said, once you post it, you can't take it back.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. We even advise our current employees, hey, keep your posts, family friendly, keep it neutral. If you're a salesperson, you don't want to polarize anyone. So they're not just going to be looking at LinkedIn necessarily. So you really want to clean up all the social media.
And sometimes it's just as easy as just like Googling yourself. You might have forgotten what you put out there or what you've done, but just looking yourself up from someone else's account. Ask your brother, your cousin, one of your friends, hey, can you pull up my Facebook? Like maybe they're not, someone that's not specifically connected to you, and just see what you look like. And that's, look at it from a different point of view versus what you feel and what you think. Because maybe you're in your little tunnel of like, this is my social media, this is what I do, this is who I am. But from the employer's perspective, you represent, or you may represent, their organization. So definitely look at yourself up.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So
one last thing with that, just even watching the news, everyone, we're all seeing it. Everyone's seeing how things are catching up with people. I think they call it cancel culture now. And you're seeing stuff come out of the woodwork from people posting stuff 10 years ago and how it's finally catching up. So it will come back around.
Great point, Chris. I think this is a good time to pause real quick and open up the floor for questions for attendees or anyone else about their LinkedIn profile. Do you have any questions to either chat on the chat line or to talk real quick? Do you have any questions for us? Maybe some advice that you want looking for your profile or your social media platform. I'll start it off because there's a debate going on about uniform, wearing a uniform for your profile picture as far as military folks transitioning out. So what do you guys think? Kind of chime in. What do you see when you look at profiles, when you see someone in uniform that might be looking for a civilian job? Like, what do you guys think about that?
From my side, especially because I got out 2 years ago, so I'm not sure if it's just fresh from my mind, but many people have came back and told me, hey, you call me, hey, just call me Mike, or no problem, sir. No, really, just it's okay, relax, And so coming out of the military, that picture of the uniform sends that same message sometimes, sends that same message of like, this is me, very stout, strict, and and then at the same time, on the other end of it, I think that also sends a message of that other stigma that we in the military kind of give people too, as, oh, when I see the military person, it means this or it means that, as opposed to us being able to present ourselves in a different way and still adapt. It doesn't take away from the fact that we're in the military, And I'm not saying we got to bury the fact that we're in the military, but at the same time, I think that uniform in your profile picture doesn't translate or transition the people's, view of you. You're going to be in that military mindset the whole time. And maybe they don't want someone that maybe he's going to kick the door down and go, hey, welcome to the job. This is what I'm going to do. This is, maybe they want someone that's going to be able to be a more comfortable fit to their organization. So it sends that initial message very differently for different people, I think.
Right. Good.
I would completely agree with that, because I spent 15 years in Air Force recruiting, and we wore the uniform to all of our events. But if anyone ever saw me in civilian clothes, they would say you're much more approachable in civilian clothing versus the uniform sometimes. And I think, sometimes, like I said, we we portray a very professional image, but sometimes that can make people hesitant as well, as Craig mentioned. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and for me, my take on it was, I got out of the military for a reason, not to keep hanging on to it. I'm proud of what I did. However, I'm in a new chapter now, and I'm more than a soldier. I'm more than a veteran. I want to bring skills to a company that brings value, not because of my service. Like I said, I'm proud of it, but there comes that time when, like, all right, you got out for a reason, and it's time to move on. You can still hold on to it and be proud of it, but be more than a veteran, a soldier, Marine, sailor. So that was kind of my view on it, and my advice I'd give anybody.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So I agree too. I'm not a fan of wearing a uniform. Obviously, to me, it adds another perception, another question mark. Like, is this person still in the military? Is he on board to be a civilian now? Like, kind of question mark their commitment to their next civilian employment. So awesome. So I have another question I'm going to ask for Tiffany. What advice would you have for someone that's going to reach out to a connection, again, on LinkedIn, that they don't know? How should they approach that person via message or whatnot to make that connection?
Well, I think we already touched on some of that, which I think is good advice as far as for, having a purpose when you reach out to that person, whether it be you research the company and the position that you're potentially interested in. But I think it's also important to consider that, they are people. So the people that they're individuals, and I know that a lot of times when someone's just reaching out to you and they just want something from you, you may be more hesitant to respond if they're just coming out with you with, hey, can you help me out with this position? Can you get me a job with your company? Those types of things. So I think sometimes it's better just to break the ice. Maybe you have a similar background. Maybe you just start out with, I'm interested in working for a company like yours. Would you mind having a conversation about, what you like about your company, how maybe you got into that, and maybe start off with more of a conversation, and just break the ice first. And then on down the line, once you form that relationship, that real connection with that person, then maybe that will build into something or an opportunity that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't reached out to that. But I think it's really important to kind of keep it warm and friendly versus just coming at them with, hey, I found this position and you work for this company. Exactly. Invest in favors before you ask, Craig. Yes. So, so just make that connection first versus just coming straight out and asking about positions or opportunities within the company would be my suggestion.
Awesome. Anyone else with questions about their profile or social media or anything out there? Any other questions about that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you apply for a job, most recruiters tell you to tailor the resume for the job description. But like, is there a specific way you can tailor the LinkedIn profile just in general? So if people go look at it, then they won't think that you're just making up stuff just to fool the applicant tracker systems.
Armando, Ga, whoever wants to chime in, whoever wants to jump in.
I think your LinkedIn stuff should be more general. Like you said, Taylor, they won't think you are doing anything because you are applying for that job and trying to portray the abilities you have and what you need to do to accomplish that stuff. So I said tailor it to the job and stuff, and also have a general resume you can always work off. So your LinkedIn stuff, I think, should be as the same as it is and tailor it to the job you want. If you have any experience in that, because sometimes your LinkedIn profile, you don't have, with your resume, you don't have enough room to put everything you are qualified in. You know, so we leave things out. And if there's certain job you have done, let's say 10, 15 years ago, and you have any question for that, and there comes an opportunity, you can always reference that on your resume, put that in for the job you're applying for.
And I think just exactly that, and to go with that also, for LinkedIn, I think the greatest thing about LinkedIn compared to Facebook or Instagram or whatever else is that it should be used to maintain professionalism. So just like you're saying, if you keep it brief and make sure it's in there, it's important. But like you're saying, is there a way to tailor it or anything else? You know, knowing that you shouldn't have to use LinkedIn to beat the bots or anything else, because it's not a resume. It's not necessarily something you have to worry about pushing it in there. But for LinkedIn, you can put some more information, not necessarily like all the details, but you can use that as your reminder for yourself. Let me make sure I put this in my resume. Okay, I did do this. And it can be a good reference point for your master resume. A lot of times you keep a master resume that no one sees, and then you use that master resume to tailor your resume that you send to your employer. You can use LinkedIn in that same sort of way as a good place to kind of put placeholders to remember, hey, I was in the military during this time, I did this duty. Maybe not like a 7-bullet explanation, but just a quick little thing to go, because I forget how long my education is or how long my work experience is. But you can put it in LinkedIn, and then you know it's there. And then you could, connect to other employers, because maybe you're not going to be in this specific one industry. Maybe you want to travel to a different industry and try something else. And so you just put some of those things in LinkedIn and connect to those individual organizations, and your network is a little bit bigger because you're using LinkedIn as almost like a hub for your interest. So as far as tailoring, I think it just goes with how you want to use it also.
Yeah, I think with LinkedIn, you can't get quite as specific with your resume because, you're not going to change your LinkedIn profile every time that you apply to a job. So, if you're generally looking for like leadership management positions, you want to have those keywords so that it's obvious when a recruiter is browsing that it pops out, because, we don't have a ton of time. So we're looking for things that stand out. If you're looking for sales, then you want those sales keywords. But definitely on the resume, that can be tailored for each job. And I would review their post and, make sure that you're using some of the same keywords that they are as well. And it's not cheating, but, if you have leadership and you notice that they're saying leadership over and over, they don't have a ton of time. So, it will help your resume stand out. In regards to our applicant tracking system, it grades applicants, but it does that based on ours doesn't actually grade them based on the resume and keywords, although you can search for keywords. It grades them off of our kind of screener questions that we'll have on the front end. But definitely tailor both. I think it helps.
Jay Hicks, does that help you out a little bit, or good? Okay.
Yeah, it helps.
Okay, awesome. All right, any other questions about LinkedIn profiles or anything, or how to navigate?
And anyone out there, you're welcome to reach out to connect as well. LinkedIn, it's in names right there. So if you want to reach out, I'm more than welcome to reach out and connect to y'all as well.
All right, so the next thing I want to talk about obviously is the current climate, right? So we're all, we all now have Zoom. We all pretty much have some type of network. We're forced to, because we either work from home or we're kind of shut down, so to speak. So my next thing to add, or maybe looking for some advice, is how am I going to stand out as a job seeker, knowing exactly that everyone else is going to have the same profiles and same accounts and whatnot. So what advice do you guys have to help me stand out as a candidate or applicant?
I think even more so now compared to before, when we were doing the physical stuff and the physical networking, you have to be savvy on the technology. You have to be ready to take a virtual interview and understand those little tips and things that you can, I mean, Google it, look up YouTube and find tips. You know, I can speak on that too, but the point is know the technology, because maybe you're going to get a Zoom interview and you've only used Zoom once, or maybe you're going to get a Microsoft Teams interview. And I'm like, what's Microsoft Teams? Like, look up those kind of things to get ahead of that game on the interview side. And then on the virtual networking side, yes, LinkedIn and those kind of things. But I would also say when you see virtual fairs, because I've attended a couple also, you know, don't be afraid to, because you're going to speak directly to people this time, as opposed to before you can passively walk past a booth or you can passively take a flyer or a pamphlet. In virtual fairs, they have rooms, and you're gonna. I sat through an Amazon virtual fair, and you're sitting in a room with the person that's going to be doing interviews when you don't expect that sometimes. So be prepared to engage, like more so than but before when you're doing the physical stuff in the virtual environment. Be ready to engage people in the virtual environment. Be ready to make connections faster, you know, because you never know. You say something, you type something out, you all that kind of stuff. Next thing you know, you're meeting up, or you talked to somebody that interviews and you didn't even realize it.
All right, Dina, do you have anything to add as far as advice to stand out?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a trying time right now. But the one thing that we harp on so many times, and Armando brought it up, is that you have to tailor the resume. You have to take that time to, you know, we would rather sit there and hear you say you applied to, you know, 2 jobs in one day as opposed to 20 jobs, because we know you just took the one resume and you're firing it off to, you know, any employer that has a job listed. And I know, because I can speak on it. I was guilty of it. I got out of the service, and, you know, it wasn't during COVID, but I had that one master resume that I thought was amazing. And I got on ZipRecruiter and I did one-click apply. And, you know, I couldn't figure out why people weren't reaching out to me. And so during this time, when you know that there's, you know, tens of thousands of additional candidates looking for employment, you really have to own your process, and you really have to put the time and effort and get those resumes out there with quality. We say quality over quantity any day. But you really need to pick apart the job description, do your research on the company, make sure that you meet the requirements for that position. Because if you don't, you know, like the people on the panel have mentioned, you know, they sometimes don't have time to go through 100 candidates. They're going to pick the best of the best, and you want to do everything you possibly can and put your best foot forward to make sure that you're standing out, because you want to get that call for that phone interview or that Zoom interview. You know, and like they mentioned, you know, make sure your technology works. But even before the interview even happens, you know, the resume is going to be priority number 1 to make sure that, you know, you're meeting the job requirements, and that that company sees that you're potentially a good fit for their position.
Awesome. Hey, Patrick, anything else to add as far as stand out, what you've seen?
Yeah, I think one thing that stands out, that everything can be an interview. You never know. You never know when you're going to talk to somebody. Like Craig was saying, you never know when the person you're talking to is going to be an interviewer, or is going to be a potential employer, or like I really like this guy. I want to hire him. So I think everything can be an interview, and just prepare yourself always. That's no matter what form you're in, whether it's in person, on the web, on the phone, that no matter who you're talking to, it could be an interview. It could be a cup of coffee. It could be an interview. You never know.
Awesome. Okay. Great. All right. Does anyone else have anything, any questions or anything to add?
Just caveat on what Patrick said. You never know. It could be an interview. When I started with NextOp, I thought I was just coming for just to meet with one of the employment coordinators and talk about the position. And all of a sudden I was put into a room and they started asking me questions. So just be prepared. You never know when it's going to happen.
Right. Okay. Awesome. All right, so I'm just gonna add two more things that I've been told as advice. I'm talking about these two things because I don't agree with them, and I want you guys to, I guess, think about it, um, and just kind of go
Oh,
off.
controversy.
Yes. No, well, not. So one of them was I attended a class, again, about networking. Again, this class was slideshow driven. This person was a so-called guru on networking. Um, I would say I did connect with him on LinkedIn, or request to connect with him on LinkedIn after the class, and my request was denied. So I don't, so I'm not sure what happened with that, but anyways, so this guy, again, a big old long spiel and slideshows about how to network. So his thing was to write down on a piece of paper. He showed a little graph, a little circle chart, I guess, and he told us to put down all the groups you're part of, whether it be church activities or personal, maybe hobbies. Put that in a circle. Put your work, put your all that work activities in a circle, and then put on the bottom of that, put list of names that you potentially would like to connect with. So if you're part of a church group or something, it may be a lead pastor or maybe a fellow parishioner there. If you want to connect with that person, you always want to talk to him or her. Write that down, and have it a goal to talk to that person as soon as you're able to, and connect with that person. So me personally, I'm not a person to write things down. I'm not a journal person, so I'm just like, I don't like that. But I mean, again, if you to each his own. If you haven't heard it before, you want to take it, awesome. But for me, again, that wasn't really for me. The second thing that I didn't agree with was this person told me to only accept connections, whether it be LinkedIn or whatever, with people that are going to benefit you. So that was like, that's weird. Like, why? I didn't really agree with it, because now I'm closing the door on so many people. This person might be a salesperson. Maybe I'm not really into sales, but that person might know someone else. I might connect me with somebody else. So why am I going to close the door on that? Because I'm ignorant as far as this person does nothing for me. So I'm going to close the door on him. I'm not going to connect with him because he has nothing for me. So kind of debate on that on your own. Just kind of think about that. Some people avoid connections because they look at the profile and see that, okay, this guy has nothing to do with my field, ignore. So I kind of challenge you to look at that. If you practice that way, I'm not trying to judge you or trying to tell you differently. But again, you're closing yourself off with so many connections and so many different opportunities than you otherwise, might be having. So look at that. My last advice here is if you do use LinkedIn or social media, don't just scroll down the post. Don't just like each post. Actually be involved. Make comments. Connect with strangers. Again, I'm gonna echo what they're saying. You're not gonna ask immediately for favors or for a job. You're gonna ask for some advice. Ask for that connection. Um, a lot of people I talk to, they say, yeah, I have LinkedIn, but it's whatever. I'm not getting any feedback. So what are you doing? Oh, nothing. I just updated my profile. Okay, well, again, you have to use it. Like, LinkedIn is not going to work unless you're actively on there commenting on, like Craig was saying, commenting, talking to people, to strangers, opening up your network. Once you connect with them, send a thank you note. And then a month later, say how things are going, how you doing. That way, again, what they're saying is maybe 2 months from now, you might end up applying for that position or that job, that company that they're working for, and now you can ask them, hey, can you do me a favor and give me some feedback? I applied for this job. Any help will be awesome. So I appreciate you guys' time. Again, I hope this was informative. And again, this was just a time to take a break, maybe eat some lunch here and just talk about the current events, again, social media networking. Let me know some feedback. Let me know what you guys think about this. I would like to do this again next month. Let me know what type of topic you want to talk about, and we'll go from there. You have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just want to add something before we leave. For individuals looking for work out there, within the industry I am, most of these people talk about the construction industry along the ship channels. We know each other and we work with, even though we are competitors, but we work with each other around the area. Now, if you put in your resume to one company And what we'll do is if there is not a position at our company, we will send it to the other companies to see who have a position that you can fill in with and get what you're looking for. So we always do that within the construction industry. And then if you mess something up with one company, bad news travel faster than good news, right? So that would get along to all the other companies before you even get there. So put your resume in and tell them if they don't have the position, if they can, you know, they will be willing to share your information with other companies or industry that may have a position and want to hire you.
Awesome. Yes. Anyone else want to add anything before I close up?
I think the big takeaway for me, my own personal background story for all of this, as far as networking, is I don't think I ever really understood the value of a mentor until after I found a mentor. You know, I mentored people while I was in the Marine Corps. I mentored people while I was in the military and all that kind of stuff. And that's what you did. And that's just what you did as part of your character or what your position is. But to actually find a good core group of people that you can trust, and it doesn't mean trust as in you trust everything to them, but just trust that they're going to be on your side, is really important. And part of that is networking. Part of that is being willing to listen to people's advice, because sometimes, you know, like we all said, sometimes we're just kind of, I don't want to talk to that guy, or I don't want to deal with this kind of stuff. Or even like God was saying, this may not be the job field that you want, but I didn't know some of the verbiage. Like, I'm a training facilitator now for Workforce Solutions, but I didn't know what training facilitator was. I was leadership, management, did all these other things, but it wasn't until a mentor told me, hey, this position involves this, and this is what this means. And I may have read that somewhere, or, you know, but looking at job postings, it wasn't clear enough until someone kind of put me under their wing and said, hey, there's certain things you could be doing differently. And to be open to finding a mentor, I think, is so important. And that doesn't have to be one person. It could just be little bits of other people. We've all been in the military or experienced that kind of thing where you don't find the perfect person to look up to, but you can find little bits and, you know, learn, you know, about social networking from Dina, and learn about, you know, mistakes made from, you know, everybody here, all these different things. But I think just finding a way to feel comfortable with accepting good feedback and finding a good mentor can help people break out of like the rut that we get into, as far as, I'm not getting hits and I'm that kind of stuff, because we don't always know what we don't know. And hearing that advice from good mentors like at NextOp and other places really can break you through. And that's the biggest thing, because I found a mentor through an organization, and eventually, like I put in the chat box, I paid forward and I got him a job with the company, because during COVID, things just changed. It's just true. And while he's looking for a position somewhere else, he needed something to kind of bridge the gap. And so I was like, hey, why don't you just apply at the company I'm at now? And lo and behold, he got hired. And so it's one of those things where, you know, you build connections, you pay it forward, you find ways to not just go, hey, I want to connect because I need a job. Like, you know, just connect.
Awesome. All right. So again, thank you guys for your time. So again, this wasn't a job fair. This wasn't anything for job opportunities. But again, we talked about networking, but this platform was a great opportunity to network. So I asked you guys, before I close up, you guys can exchange LinkedIn profiles if you guys wish, connect that way. Again, this will be posted on LinkedIn, you know, social media, Facebook, YouTube. So other people here listening in, feel free to look us up, connect with us, connect with the panel host here, or the panel members here, and that's all I have. I think again for today.